everyone, my name is Sara Dietschy, rhymes with Peachy. I usually don't do videos on rumors, but there have been so many articles about the much anticipated 2023 Mac Pro that I just had to do it. We gotta talk about this. In June of 2020, Apple announced their transition to Apple Silicon for Mac. That meant that all of their computers were eventually going to ditch Intel CPUs and AMD GPUs for Apple's all-in-one magical chip. The first one being the M1. Apple said that this transition for all Macs was going to be complete in only 2 years, but they definitely missed that transition. We don't have the beefed up Mac Mini yet, but more importantly, we don't have an Apple Silicon Mac Pro or iMac Pro for that matter. Who knows about that beautiful space gray iMac Pro with Apple Silicon, but there are so many rumors happening about the new Mac Pro. But hey, if you still want that best of the best Mac Pro, well, you can still pay anywhere from $5,999 all the way up to $53,799 with an Intel processor. So many people I know that bought the Mac Pro, the 2019 Mac Pros, either regret their purchase or just sold theirs for the new Mac Studio with an M1 Ultra for a fraction of the price. They're looking at the performance of a fancy Intel processor versus the new Apple Silicon M1 Ultra, and they're noticing, oh wait, this Apple Silicon is performing way better and also in a smaller form factor, so they're just going with that. But hey, you know something else you could do is just buy a PC. Listen, I don't want to sound like one of those like a-holes on the internet and Reddit. It's just like, oh, you just build a PC for everything, because that's not the solution for everyone. But hey, if you have the budget of the lowest Mac Pro config, you could actually build the most epic computer with a custom PC company like Maingear or Puget. My current Puget setup is totally spec'd out with a 32-core AMD processor, 128 gigs of RAM, an NVIDIA RTX 3080, and well, it's a PC, so you just throw more storage in it if needed, right? The price was not $53,000, and it absolutely rips in Resolve and Premiere. I know I'm like just a YouTuber and just a video editor, but some of my video edits go pretty hard, guys, okay? They kind of get out of hand. Okay, I just had to say that, especially for those solo video editors who just need raw power and don't need some proprietary Mac software or, you know, a proprietary workflow that needs Mac. I know Windows machines get a bad rep for being bloated a lot of the time, which is like completely true. But in my experience, a lot of the time, these higher end builders are super clean in terms of the OS, and I have never had unexplainable problems like beach balling. Usually that happens with me video editing on Mac. I might be unique, but as someone who had a Premiere workflow and now a Resolve workflow, I can just consistently get better results on PC. Okay, you did not come here for that rant, but there it is. Okay, moving on. I get a little off script sometimes, but hey, listen, Apple actually really smashed their MacBooks out of the park the past couple of years. From the M2 MacBook Air to the M1 Max MacBook Pro, I honestly can't think of better machines for creatives on the go unless you have some intense VFX or engineering CAD software that requires an NVIDIA GPU. They have done an amazing job so far with their new Apple Silicon Macs, but you know what Apple has been really bad at the past decade? Even more than the past decade? This. They're uber high-end machines. They just haven't been able to figure it out. For the past decade, I feel like they have just really dropped the ball, and that's why I feel like there is so much pressure for this Mac Pro that is just around the corner with Apple Silicon. So I actually interviewed two brothers, Zach and Aaron, who have a ton of experience with the Mac Pro and are actually on opposite sides. So we have Zach on one side, who heads out the IT department for this mega church, Elevation Church. I'm actually very familiar with them, and their operation is pretty crazy. Not only do they have a super talented music department, but they're streaming to a ton of campuses, capturing live video, so have a ton of live production needs, but also post-production needs, and they have this setup. Multiple rack units of the 2019 Mac Pro, and it really works for them. On the flip side, we have his brother Aaron, who you actually actually might follow here on YouTube who does Zolo Tech. Not only does he review a ton of tech, but he is using it day in, day out to pump out a crazy amount of videos. And well, he did not have the best experience with the Mac Pro, and honestly is more on the side of a lot of Twitter commenters that I experience with being like, yeah, this computer, the 2019 Mac Pro, sits in a very awkward position where it's almost overpowered for the typical video editor, but it's underpowered, no matter how much money you spend on it, tens of thousands of dollars, for the VFX people who really need NVIDIA graphics, so they're probably just gonna go with a PC, right? So it sits in this weird middle ground that really doesn't fulfill a lot of needs. So I think we should just strut down memory lane for a second. Ah, the trash can Mac Pro. So hated. We all know that Apple is a very design-driven company, but in the case of the trash can Mac, they may have focused just a bit too much on design, which is funny because it was so ugly. It was 8 times smaller than the previous model, which was actually the much beloved cheese grater Mac, which just means that users couldn't do as much. Plus, the proest of the pro users don't mind big computers, you know? They're fine showing it off, because gosh darn it, they better after spending all of that money. Any additional hard drives or DVD drives, you guys remember DVDs, had to be connected externally. The new internal cooling system, called the Unified Thermal Core, only used one fan and could not handle high performance graphics.
And of course we upgraded to the trash can Mac Pros, which in our environment worked well, but ultimately after they started to have a ton of graphic card issues, we were just like, okay, we're done with this. So we sometimes use the trash can Mac Pros on a Sonnet rack mount chassis that lays it vertically so you could mount it in a rack. It goes in horizontally to a rack. You're like, this doesn't, it just looks weird too.
And it was less upgradable because, well, look at it. So the tech was supposed to be the best of the best, right? But it would become outdated even faster than before. There was also a gap of 7 years from the first generation Mac Pro to the trash can Mac Pro. So the hype and expectations just added to the disaster of the trash can. When you're spending the crazy amount of money that Mac Pros cost, pros want to be able to buy it and be set for a long time. But these machines, they had a very quick expiration date.
And we sent those things in so many times to Apple to get fixed. And actually one of them failed so catastrophically that we were like, okay, when we bought the new Mac Pro rack mount, the 2019 version, we bought 2 of them. We're like, nope, we're not doing this anymore.
Okay, so let's fast forward to 2019, and yay, they revived the cheese grater design. But for the price, this machine, well, fell flat for many.
For me, price tag wise, it's definitely the most expensive Mac I've ever bought. Or probably tech thing ever, maybe, other than maybe some cameras. When the Mac Studio came out, it was just an easy switch because it was so much faster. Really now with the M1 Ultra, and it's just instant.
The Mac Pro just letting people down since 2013, you know, but that's again why all eyes are on Apple for this 2023 release after missing the 2-year Apple Silicon transition deadline. We're ready.
The one thing I thought that I doubt Apple would ever do is, I have this expensive Mac, give me some way to swap out something. Even if I have to bring it in, I've never seen Apple do anything like that, but I would love something like that. That would make me feel like I got more for my money at least.
A lot of rumors have been swirling around recently. According to the guy, Mark Gurman, the reason the new Mac Pro has been held up is for 3 reasons. So 1, they're changing the features. They're going back and forth and back and forth. 2, there's a significant shift in the company's plan for high-end processors and potential relocation of its manufacturing. So Apple has been wanting to replace the Intel Mac Pro with a processor based on their original M1 chip. They wanted their lower configuration to be the M1 Ultra chip, which can be found in the highest spec Mac Studio, and the higher configuration to be a double M1 Ultra chip, or basically 4 M1 Max chips combined, since an M1 Ultra is 2 M1 Maxes. Are you sticking with me here? But that original plan got pushed, and then they raised the stakes even more, and they said, okay, wait for it. We're gonna do the Ultra and the double Ultra, which we will now call the Extreme for simplicity. Is that simple? So you got the Ultra, and the Double Ultra is the Extreme. But instead of the M1 series chip, it's going to be the newer M2 generation. So an M2 Ultra and an M2 Extreme. Yes, can you tell the pros are just salivating at the mouth? They're ready to get their $20,000 out. Give me all of the M2 Extreme Mac Pros. But now they've changed their minds again. Since it will be an all new generation of chips, they're actually dropping this Extreme variant. Apparently the complexity and cost of production is just too difficult, so the Mac Pro's highest configuration will feature an M2 Ultra chip, while the Mac Studio still just maxes out at an M1 Ultra chip. So you don't get the M2 Extreme, but you basically get the M2 Ultra. Reminder, at this moment, all of this is still speculation, but the good news is that the rumors say the RAM and storage will still be easily upgradable. So I'm really excited to share more of these interviews to just shed more light on what pros actually use these machines for, because it's pretty easy to dunk on them. You know, you're like, who's spending $20,000, $30,000 on these machines? It's just so overkill, right? Okay, enjoy these conversations with Zach and Aaron.
In our environment, we've got 7 total Mac Pro rack mounts, and we use 3 of those as audio stations. So we've got a live recording studio here, and we've got 3 studios, and so we have 3 Mac Pros, and each of those have, you know, various IO cards in them, and so those PCIe slots are, you know, infinitely valuable because it gives us the ability to scale out and include some of the interfaces that we absolutely need. Whereas the old trash can, you could do that, but you'd have to buy a third-party rack mount solution. Trust
and
that
it's
nobody
also
unplug
a cylinder.
Yes.
You know, so that
like,
makes it difficult.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And changing any hardware on those things was a nightmare. It was like 37 screws. So heaven forbid anything ever broke. And heaven forbid anybody pulls the Thunderbolt 2 cable and then all your peripherals don't work anymore. So all that to say, the Mac Pro was like oh, wow, this is what we've been waiting for. This is what we've needed for a long time. And it works super reliably. That's one of our use cases, is the kind of audio studios. And those audio guys love those Mac Pros. We've actually got them in a central server room, and we've got Thunderbolt 3 fiber optic Thunderbolt 3 cables going to a dock that are in their specific audio rooms. And we do that so that any noise, even though those things are like whisper quiet, any noise is contained to the server room. We've got a couple other use cases for them as well. We use them in our broadcast environment, where we capture all of our cameras and capture the isolated camera feeds. So at our broadcast facility in Valentine, North Carolina here, we have 8 Vericams, Panasonic Vericams, that through, you know, a series of routers and things ultimately get captured. Each of those cameras get captured through an application called Softron Movie Recorder, and that's ingested into those Mac Pros. And again, one of those use cases where we needed specific PCIe cards that are AJA Kona 4 cards that allow, you know, ingest over a bunch of different SDI inputs, and then you can record, you know, 1080 5994 on 8 cameras in ProRes LT. So kind of a lower tier, but it works super well for what we've got. And anything that happens in post goes through those machines. So everything's captured there. And we've got some workflow set up where our editors here at Elevation can, of course, have access to that footage and edit and make the YouTube videos that we do on the weekends.
Have you guys had any reliability issues, or is it kind of just like plug and play? It works.
It just works. Every time we've installed one of those things, it just works. We have not had a single issue that I recall in the 2.5, maybe 3 years of use at this point. 'Cause reliability is like king right now for us. So
yeah, and it's rack mounted, so no one can mess with it. An engineer can't walk in and be like, boop, 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 pull some cables, you know?
That's right.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, and a lot of YouTube is very like, oh, just build a PC. It's a lot of like judgmental gamers who just don't understand why, when it comes to creatives or even live production, why is the preference towards Mac?
I will tell you from working in IT for the past 5 or 10 years that I don't have to troubleshoot. And so it just works. If I plug it in, it will just work. You name it. I just want to like load the same program on every computer, and I know it works. And everybody's got the same experience, and it's just as fast everywhere. And that's it.
Obviously, you do a lot of content creation. You know, I'm sure mostly in Final Cut. Like what config did you have?
Yeah. So I made a video about it, but Apple sent me the wrong config, which was better. So it worked out.
Nice.
I ordered the 12 I ordered the 12 core with, I think, 96 gigs of RAM, something like that. And then 2 terabytes of storage in the Vega 64. They sent me the 16 core, 96 gigs of RAM, 4 terabytes of storage, and 2 Vega 64s. So it was like
Take
the
it.
15, it was $3,000 more. And they said, yeah, just keep it instead of shipping it back and all that sort of thing.
Wow. Oh, you're so honest,
Yeah.
hitting up support. Wow. So to have a $15,000 machine and then to turn to an Apple Silicon machine at the fraction of the price, and that's performing better for you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, duh. You know,
Yeah.
of course you're going to switch.
But yeah, I felt like it's the biggest waste of money in some ways because I can't get my money back too much.
Well, yeah, I feel like
But-
no one wants to buy them. It's only like 2 or 3 years later, and I feel like, one, most people are probably waiting for the Apple Silicon, or 2, they're just going to buy a Mac Studio.
Right. Yeah. And so for, well, $8,000 is totally loaded for a Mac Studio. And that's still expensive, but it's still a fraction of the other. So the Mac Pro, I liked it. I liked it as sort of the high-end supercar on the desk type thing.
Exactly.
But-
It's very impressive.
And the other thing too you mentioned, I forgot to follow up on, is, you know, you're just using Final Cut Pro and that sort of thing. The type of videos that I do, I don't know if you do as many of these, but if an iOS update comes out, it's about how fast can I get that done. Accurate and as much as information as I can get, but also how fast. So by the time it's done, I've got to export it, upload it. And then, so I'm thinking, okay, this could save me time.
Take all this is what Apple would do off the table. What is like the dream Mac Pro with Apple Silicon?
Oh, for me, instant video exports. That's really whatever we can do to get to that. But you're done editing, you hit done, you're done. The current design is great. I would like to see maybe some front ports on it, really. And then the ability to maybe swap out the M2, whatever's going to be in it, to the next thing. Then I don't have to replace it every 3 years at the cost of $15,000 or whatever it is. Who knows?
So I hope you guys enjoyed those interviews. I love geeking out over gear in process with creatives. It's like one of my favorite things to do. So I hope you enjoyed them as well. And until next time, stay peachy. Okay, bye.